The town of Norridgewock will have a seat at the table in determining the future of the former New Balance factory after getting the okay from voters. The town says the referendum passed 180 to 143. The company offered up the roughly 170,000 square foot property to the town after ceasing operations there early last year. Yesterday's vote authorized the select board to accept that donation. The town manager says multiple entities are interested in calling the Depot Street facility home, including Maine Grains. He adds the site could ultimately house multiple operations, potentially including some municipal uses. Town officials tell WABI their involvement allows greater opportunities for grant funding.